Hello and happy Sunday to you. So, I want to talk about something today that I'm super excited, and I want you to know that I have no public speaking prowess, but I do have a lot of experience, and so I speak from that, from the heart. And I grew up in an ultra-conservative, patriarchal religion, and one of the results of that, one of the big things that I saw, and I see now even more clearly since I've been out of it for years and I'm looking back and processing a lot of things. When you're in it, you don't know that what you're experiencing isn't normal. It isn't healthy. You don't question it. It's just your normal, right? It wasn't until years later that I started to look at things that happened and to recognize the effect that they had on me and that they were not healthy, that they weren't quote unquote normal. And I know that the word normal is subjective. So I want to dive in. Ultra-conservative patriarchal religion is about rules. There were lots of rules. And there was a sin scale. You know, you had your big sins, and then you had the little ones that you could admit to and talk about. But the big ones, you never did. Because those were just too bad, and we don't do that here. We're good people. We look good from the outside and clean cut, put together. The women were quote unquote modest. But the thing about rules, all the shouldn'ts, can'ts, better nots, is this. There's a verse in the Bible that says, the power of sin is the law. So, in other words, it's like if you see a patch of well-manicured grass, and there's a sign on it that says, keep off the grass. And all of a sudden, what do you want to do? You want to go dance a jig on that grass. You want to step on the grass. Even if before you never even noticed the grass, that's all you want to do now. So that's it. It's the shouldn'ts, the can'ts, the don'ts, the you better nots. It's the rules, the laws. Sin gets its power from that. So with that in place, one of the big sins was sexual sin and sex in and of itself. Anything outside of marriage, which that's another conversation entirely. But that it was like you had murder and then you had sex and lust, and it was just second on the sin scale. It was severe. So there was a lot of focus on it, a lot of rules around it, a lot of you better not, you can't, you don't. And so, of course, that created a monster. It created a fixation, an obsession. It looked like objectifying women and seeing them just as tools. And women's bodies were unsafe. They were dangerous. They were to be feared. They were the thing that would cause men to lust and sin. And I'm talking all men. So as women, I never felt, and I've talked to a lot of other women who never felt safe in their own bodies because of it. We never felt okay. Like I was the girl who wore 2 shirts because the top shirt the neckline was too low. And it wasn't. But if there was ever a time when you would bend over and there could be a tiny bit of cleavage or skin, then that was immodest and it was unsafe, and it was going to cause the men to stare, to lust after you. And this, it also looked like marital rape, because men were taught that women were objects, and women were taught they could never say no. And even in marriage, sex was still a taboo feeling. It was still that feeling of, you can't, don't, you shouldn't, it's bad, it's dirty. Instead of being taught that it's an art form, that it's beautiful, that it is a wonderful thing, it was this thing in the dark, this evil, bad thing. And so there was a fixation, and it came out looking like fathers who molested their daughters, or at the very least were afraid they would. So when their daughters began to grow into young women from girls, they would distance themselves and remove affection because they were afraid that's what they would do. Or it led to fathers molesting their daughters, and it led to preachers using their position of power to abuse, rape, and molest women and calling it godly. And there was this idea that, and I can't tell you how many times I heard that men are visual, and so we have to hide all of the things about ourselves that could cause them to sin. And all the women, every time a story of rape came up, the men and the women would look at what the woman had been wearing and say, well, it's no wonder she was asking for it. No woman ever asks for that. But that's the kind of thinking that was there. I remember as a teenage girl having the men in charge that were the important ones that made the rules. I can remember feeling unsettled and kind of scared because they would stare at me. They would just watch me. And I never knew why. And just the insidiousness of it. When you create rules and laws, it gives sin its power. And the outcome for me was never feeling safe in my own body, because my body itself was evil. And I was never safe enough, no matter how much I covered up. I'll never forget the first time I wore a pair of pants out in public, and they were baggy pants. They were jeans, super baggy, didn't even fit me right. But I remember feeling terrified when I walked out of that store with them on. I felt naked. I felt like I was a piece of meat offered up on a plate. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And that fear, that feeling of never being safe in your own skin, never, being afraid of your own body, that was, for myself and many other women, the result of that ultra-conservative patriarchal religion and the fixation on how bad sex was and how bad a woman's body was. And that was what was translated. And what it created was a sexual obsession in everyone. And for young people, it removed their ability to choose, to see clearly, to choose a partner wisely, because that was all you could think of. Sex was the only thing on the brain because of the environment. It was a fixation for everyone. So we weren't able to make wise decisions for a life partner, because the first boy that came along, we raced to marriage with. And it's just so, it's sickening and it's sad, and it resulted in women being sex objects in the world at large and in their own home, because it didn't change. It doesn't change in the walls of your home. It's programming that is bone deep. I just wanted to share that and shed a light on it. Maybe you can relate. I don't know who's hearing this or what your past looks like when it comes to this kind of religion, but maybe somebody out there can relate and will hear it and know that what they're experiencing isn't okay, and that's why I share these things. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.